Hi guys, welcome to Always Yarn First, a podcast about knitting, crochet, and all the yarny goodness in between. I'm Lindsay, and I am coming to you from Little Rock, Arkansas, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry both as Always Yarn First. So this is episode 4, and if you've been here before, you know I name my episodes after songs, so this week's episode is called Issues, based on the song by Julia Michaels, which I will link that below, along with anything else I talk about in the episode. So we'll get into a little bit later what we're talking about with issues this week. So as a reminder before we start though, I am hosting a year-long make-along to use your stash. It doesn't have to be a finished object. The only rule is that it has to be all yarn that you have had before this calendar year. Use the hashtag /mystash2002MAL on Instagram. Crochet, knitting, both are great. Posting your whips, finished objects, and I will be pulling a prize per month from my stash to go to you. So we're almost at the end of month 1, which means Tuesday, February 1st, I will be pulling a winner. Let me get out my bag here. I don't have it right here. For a yarn I've previously showed, I'll put a picture in, but I will be pulling a winner February 1st for the first month prize, but keep using that hashtag all year. So, how has everyone been? It's been really productive here, I think, for me the last few weeks. Maybe just I haven't been working on as many projects, but I feel like I've made good progress on the ones I have been doing, which is really awesome. So what I'm wearing, before we get too far, is the Soundtrack Pullover by Greene, also known as Olive Knits. So you can see my project page below with the yarns and any modifications I've done for this sweater. So, this week, I have 0 finished objects, but I am close to finishing 2 sweaters. So, actually, I do have finished objects. I just don't have them here, so that's incorrect. So, I will start by mentioning those, and then I will have to put pictures in of my finished objects. So, the first one I finished was the Yellowstone socks. Those were the socks I was making for a friend of mine. Those were by the Woolberry Fiber Co. yarn set that I got, and I have already gifted those socks, and thankfully they fit great, and she loves them, so I will put in a finished object picture here. The second thing, I'm calling it a finished object. Okay, so I have news that goes with this finished object. So I made a crochet sampler is what I'm calling it. The exciting news is that myself, along with my daughter, who's a crocheter, we will be teaching a crochet class at Arkansas Yarn Co. in February. So if you are local or if you want to come over, visit Arkansas for a weekend, go to Hot Springs, maybe take a crochet class, and meet me. That would be so much fun. The class is currently up on Arkansas Yarn Co. website, and I will put in a picture. You'll see my sampler I made. So it's preferred that you already know how to chain and single crochet. So we'll be working on half double crochets, double crochets, treble crochets, and perfecting our turning, because I know when I learned crochet, I had a hard time with knowing where my first stitch was. And so it's going to be really fun. February 19th. And like I said, the sign up, as you'll see in the picture, is on Lori's website. And I'm super stoked about it. So the picture shows the crochet sampler I worked on. So you can kind of get a view in that picture of single crochet stitches all the way up to treble. So that's the other thing I finished. So let's get into whips. All right. So let's start with this one because it's on the top of my cart. So the first one is my Mama Vertebrae sweater, pullover, not pullover, cardigan. So let me turn it around and show you where I was the last podcast. I finished the last few inches, plus I think I did 2 inches of 1x1 twisted rib. Oh, and it looks so good. I love it. And I didn't stop there. I did both sleeves. So it's better to kind of see it from the back side here, because again, this cardigan doesn't really go around the front of you. It literally just covers your arm and your back. So it doesn't really go around your side. So all I have left of this is to pick up the band all the way around and do ribbing. So I definitely hope to have this as a finished object the next podcast. And I'm super excited about it. Just briefly, because I've talked about it before, this is using Stress Knits yarn, her DK base, and this is in the Golden Hour colorway. And it is so squishy, and I love it so much. So yeah, I am really close to this, and yeah, I'm excited. So let's go into the other one that I've been working a lot on. So the other sweater that almost doesn't even fit in my bag anymore. I have it in a Fringe Supply Co bag, who is no longer making bags. I have it squished in there. This is, it's at the front. Yep. So the Autumn League Pullover. You'll remember this one. This is the one that's, it's meant to look like a comfy sweatshirt. So this is the front. Now you'll see where I was last time. So I did even more on this. I just picked it up, and this was my TV knitting. So this is regular 1x1 rib on this one. I have not started the sleeves yet. I just finished binding off the body last night. But I'll put a picture in. I did try it on last night. It is comfy. And so I obviously have the sleeves and the neckline to do. And so maybe I will also finish this sweater if I don't get stuck on Sleeve Island, because this one, unlike that other one, this one will be full sleeves. So this one will be longer than the Mama Vertebrae was. Okay, the next thing I have is a new cast on since last time, and it's a half object. This is just a vanilla DK weight sock. If you'll remember the last podcast, I showed this yarn. This was a yarn I had acquired the last podcast from Lori. This was the Much Ado About a Latte. And I just decided I wanted some more DK weight cozy warm socks, because the last week or so my feet have been super cold. So I just cast on and just went with it. So I can tell you what I did. I use a US size 3. Usually in my regular socks I use a US size 1.5. That gives you an idea. And then I cast on 48 stitches. Usually with a regular sock weight I cast on 64 stitches. And then I believe I only did 8 rounds of ribbing, another 10 rounds maybe. I barely did any before I got in the heel. Now this sock particularly is just 100% wool. There's no nylon. And I know that there's other makers who have had no problem with that. I get a little bit worried when there's no nylon. So for the heel, I just grabbed 2 fingering weight yarns in my scrap stash. I don't even know what they are. I did like a gray plus like a ivory cream color for the heel. Let's see. Yeah. So the bad news is my measurements when I was measuring from, I usually do top down, and then I do the shadow wrap heel, which is a lot like the Fish Lips Kiss heel, short rows. And then I usually measure until I know I'd start on my toe. Well, I think I must have started just a little too soon because this is just doesn't quite fit me right. But the good news is my grandma has a bit smaller feet than me, and she loves DK weight socks. She is always begging for more. She literally wears them every day and until there's holes in the socks. So I'll probably will do the other one the same and just send them off to her, and she will love them. So, and that's Lori from Arkansas Yarn Co. I think I mentioned that. Yeah. Okay. So what else did I work on? I'm going to leave the issue for the last one so we can talk about it. So I also worked a little bit on my lightweight hipster shawl. This is a one skein shawl project. So let's see. Okay, you can see my stitch marker from last time. I'm pretty much just in this garter section. I've just been so obsessed with my sweater knitting lately that I haven't worked on this too terribly much. I'm doing this with Maddie and Kristen from We Shall Needles. They are hosting a sha-la-la along, so knitting shawls. So I had grabbed this out of my stash to also count for my slashing my stash, and I'm working on this. I think it's going to be gorgeous. This again is Arkansas Yarn Co. in her sparkle base. You cannot tell, and this is the colorway Some Pig. So this is gorgeous. And the pattern's Lightweight Hipster by Joji Locatelli. So and there is the yarn. Lori's sparkle base is the best. All right, so because I got so much progress done on 2 sweaters, I finally gave myself permission to cast on a new one. Because for me, one of my year-long goals is to finish 14 garments. So I was waiting till I was at least done with the body with one. So I finished my Mama Vertebrae body quite a few days ago. But then I was so excited, I'm like, I'm just going to start the sleeves. And so until I was done with all that, I cast on the next one. So this next one, I probably mentioned this sweater. November, I went to Texas to visit a close friend of mine, and I got to go to a couple of yarn stores. And one of them I walked in and I saw a sweater sample of a style of sweater that I had never seen before. And I'll insert a picture. The sweater is called the Lawrenson pullover. And I'm not like a girly girl or whatever, but something about with these bell sleeves, I really loved it. Now, the one that they had at the store was real mild and, neutral color, super pretty. But I was inspired by Professor Pearl's podcast a while back where she was wearing, I think, a rift that was in bright hot pink. And I know I've showed this yard before. So I messaged my friend Lori at Arkansas Yarn Co. because she dyes yarn and she will special dye yarn. And I said, I need to have a hot pink for this sweater, like immediately. So this is it. She named it Shockingly. So she does have, so you'll notice the Crochet Sampler. This is on Sparkle Base. This is called Roller Derby. But this one's just it's similar, but this one is just a deeper pink. I don't know. I love them both. But, so this isn't going to look like much. I cast on for the Lawrenson pullover. So, with the way the construction is, this is the back of the sweater so far. I already did some short rows in here. And then I believe I cast on for the front and connected, which reminds me a bit how Joji Locatelli does quite a few of her sweater construction. So I'm going by pattern. You'll see I have a lifeline in here because that's right after I did the short rows. And now I'm basically knitting till I'm a certain inches from the cast on. And I like how it's looking. I went up a needle size in my gauge, which almost every sweater I've ever done I have to because I'm a tight knitter. So I went up a needle size, but for some reason, I guess maybe I just haven't knit a sweater in this type of gauge. And so I was really nervous. And the directions at this point specifically say, okay, when you reach so many inches, you should have this many rows. And this is going to be important because of how the short rows are going to lay. So I thought, all right, I'm going to, at the start of just after the short rows, I put in a lifeline. And I thought, if my gauge is too big at that point, like my rows are really off, I will just quickly rip back to this point, not worry about this little part, and go back down a needle size and pick it back up. So it'll be easier because I don't know about you, but for me, I know some people, the worst part of knitting is like weaving in the ends or something like that. I hate casting on. I don't know what it is. I really hate it. Like if I love knitting socks, but casting on with the ribbing to me is the worst. I hate it. So I didn't want to have to redo it. And that's such a little tiny section. I wasn't really worried if that little bit was off. But that way I can rip back this and catch it, pick it up, no problem. So this is going to be my next sweater I'll be working on. I am also probably going to be casting on another sweater since I'm about to finish two. I kind of had, I think I talked about that I had my queue in Ravelry this year even set up in a way where it makes sense to go with the seasons because I am super hot-blooded and summers in Arkansas are insane hot. I have a house that has lots of windows and light, which I love. And yes, I have the air on, but I still am just hot. I don't want a thick sweater on my lap. So I have moved my Ravelry queue, which you can go in and see if you'd like. I have a couple long sleeve, heavier weight sweaters right now. And then I transition to like t-shirt tops, fingering weight, or tank tops I want to work on, linen, things like that, cotton. That will be my summertime working on. So there's one more sweater I have that I wanted to cast on while it was still winter because it gets pretty cold here in February. So I still have time. And that's another yarn that I'd gotten on my trip to Texas, which we'll probably go into. I was thinking about caking it up here next week, so I may start that sweater too. You'll probably see it next time. And it's another sweater by Greene, who's the designer of the one I'm currently wearing. So, one more thing I worked on a little bit is my Scrappy Granny, which is my crochet blanket I'm using row 1 minis for. I only crocheted one new square. I don't have that close by, but I attached another stripe. So I did this again last night. It's been sitting there and I wanted to attach it. So this will make the second strip of this that I have completed. So I have 2 strips of this, and if you're new here, I am taking my row 1 mini subscription, which is a subscription every month. Every month it's a different indie dyer. Row 1 just provides it. The minis are already pre-wound, ready to go. They are 10 gram minis. You get 10 of them. So I am making a Afghan for my bed, which is a king size bed. And so I decided to do that. I am using the 10 gram minis. I use about 8 or 9 grams, almost the whole thing. And I make granny squares from the pattern by Knitty Natty, which is Scrappy. Granny is a free pattern on Ravelry. And I just make these squares plus 2 neutral squares on each end. So this I just got from Knit Picks. It's their Bear Stroll, I believe. And then I'm going to attach them. And so what this does is this reminds me, this is all one dyer. I know you're going to think, well, what dyer is that? And I did not keep a single tag, so I'm not sure. But this is all one dyer besides the bear yarn. And then each month I make another strip and add it, and then I will attach those strips to basically make a big crochet blanket. So this is kind of a fun project. I have not been keeping up with it as much as I want to. I'm really thinking tomorrow is going to be Scrappy Sunday. Today's Saturday, so tomorrow I think is going to be Scrappy Sunday. I've made really great progress on my sweaters. I think I'm going to just take the day and see how many squares I can get through. So, but this is really fun, long-term project. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the issues. All right, so I introduced this sweater last week. This is my husband's sweater. Isn't that always the way it goes? I feel like every podcast I've watched where a knitter has problems with a sweater, it's always their husband or boyfriend's sweater. What is that? Is it because we know our own body? I don't know what that is. All right, so I showed this sweater last time. And I said it was such a slog because, you know, you start at the bottom up and just a lot of body. My husband's a tall guy. So I was excited because I'm like, oh, I just need to get to sleeve separation and then I start the color work and that will be so much better. I don't know if you can hear my husband. He's in the office laughing. So I got to the sleeve separation. And after the sleeve separation, you work flat. Didn't think about it when I started that, what that was going to mean for me. And then there was still a little bit of basically decreasing. So let me show you. So I'm just working one side. So at this point, there's shaping. So there's decreasing, and you can see I didn't start the color work immediately when I separated for sleeves. There's still a little bit. And then you start the color work chart. I'm like, okay, this will be so much better. I don't love color work, but at least it's something else for my eyes to look at instead of miles of this. Well, I don't know if you have knit color work flat before, because I have never knit color work on the purl side. And let me tell you, it was not fun. Like literally, I did 2 rows of color. Like that's how not fun it was. Because I haven't knit a ton of color work. I think mine looks good for me, for my stuff. But I'm definitely not a pro where all my stuff is color work. And so it can get the tension down okay regularly, but now we're talking about flat, and that's a whole different ballgame. So I just feel, so the last row I knit here is a purl row. Was going across, and it just looks like a sloppy mess to me. Now, I get it. If you look at it in the front, you can't really tell. But this was miserable. Now, maybe it'll get easier. I mean, just like anything with time and practice, it gets better. but I am dreading this. So I have to do this whole section. I'm hoping the sleeves go in the round. I haven't even looked at that yet. Surely the sleeves are in the round. But then I have to do the whole front. I think this is the back first. And I have to do the whole front again with color work. So, not what my husband wanted to hear, but I'm like, I feel like this is going to take me years to do. Like, this is how frustrated I am about it. Last Saturday, I went to Arkansas Yarn Co. with Natty and Jana, and we sat and knit with Lori all day. I was talking to them about this sweater, and I'm like, I feel like I'm not that much of an advanced knitter. Like, surely there's some way to fudge it where you can go in the round, but maybe it's too late because of the shaping and stuff like that. And there was another girl we met that came in and knit, and I cannot remember your name, and if you're watching this, I am so sorry. We had a really good time. But she had suggested to do the sleeves, I'm guessing from cuff up, and then go back down to here where it's sleeve separation and attach it and then work in the round. And again, like, my brain is like, what? I feel like, do you ever have when someone's talking to you and it's not even the way they're talking to you, but you don't understand it? Every time that happens, I imagine one of those memes where all those mathematical equations are like floating around and you're just like, I don't get it. And then I feel dumb, so I feel like I don't want to say, I don't get it. So this is where we are with this. So the dilemma is, I really wish I could knit this in the round. And maybe one of you are watching, like, totally gets it and like, okay, maybe you want to just email me below and explain it to me. I just feel so dumb about it. I want to knit my husband a sweater. I want the sweater to fit him. I don't want it to take 5 years. But I also want to enjoy knitting him a sweater. And if I keep going on this way, I don't know. And then the dilemma is, well, do I frog it and be like, pick a different sweater? Because I can't do this. This is a cool sweater. I'd love for him to have this sweater and say, my wife made this. But also, if it takes me forever with, my tensioning on the purl side, I mean, is it going to fit right? So I take all this extra time doing all this extra work, and then he doesn't want a sweater that ain't going to fit him, and I don't want that either, because people are going to be like, well, does your wife not know how to make a sweater that fits you? So it's been in timeout. I need to pick it up and try a few more rows, because, like I said, I need to give it the benefit of the doubt and at least try it. I'm curious if any of you have knit color work on a purl side. And maybe, there are a lot of patterns out there that you do it flat. Like I said, I'm just not an advanced color work person, so I don't know. But I am really struggling with this. So let me know in the comments below. If you've knit a sweater like this, what did you do? Did it get easier? So yeah, that's where I'm at. So that's the issues for the week. And I don't know what to do about it. So, all right. So that's it as far as whips I've been actively working on. So let's go into acquisitions. All right. So I have a couple. Get all the tags out. All right. So the first thing I got was a club colorway. It was January colorway from Pineapple Yarn. I love Pineapple Yarn. She has super bright colors. She has a podcast. Her name is Marina, and I just love her color sense. The thing I love about her monthly subscription box is that she always has a photo. So like right now, if you'd go on, today is the 29th of January. So she'll have a photo of her February inspiration photo. So you can look at that inspiration photo and be like, yes, this is my color jam. I definitely want to get that yarn. So it's just the yarn for the color of the month. She has two different clubs. One is a neon club and one is a like candle club, which comes with a candle that she also makes with the theme and then also a yarn. And both of her subscriptions, you can subscribe and automatically just get them every single month, or you can do it month by month. Like if you're trying to be good and not buy every single one, you can just go on and be like, these colors are it for me. So my favorite color is like blue, teal color. And so her picture for the January club was up my alley. And so being that, like I've talked about before, I'm not saying no to buying things for my stash, but I'm trying to be mindful. Why am I getting it? What am I going to make with it? So, and because I have so many single sock yarns. So I ordered 2 because I have made a couple of fingering weight shirts that I can make with 2 skeins. So I wanted to not just have a skein for socks. I got 2 skeins. So here it is. And she just names it, it just says Sun, January 2022. And it's pineapple yarn. And this is her Lonnie sock base, which is a 75 merino, 25% nylon, 463 yards. So that's my first purchase. The second thing I got, I had mentioned that last year I did the Desert Vista Dye Works knit along, where every month you take a skein of her yarn and you have to start to finish knit a pair of socks with her yarn. When you do that for the whole year, you get different benefits, from free yarn to coupon codes for yarn. So I had one more coupon code and I was like, oh, I don't need any more. It was good till the end of December, and I procrastinated till almost the very end of December. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get a skein of yarn because I'm not doing the Desert Vista Dye Works sock along this year. So this is the yarn I got. This was one I've been eyeing for a while. This is called Bamboozled. It is on her sparkle base, her Zen base. Sparkle base, 75% merino, 45% nylon. So this one's really fun. This one, I mean, I like it like this in the skein, but she, a lot of times on her colorways, if you follow her on Instagram, she shows a little sample of what it actually looks knitted up. And I really loved it knitted up. Sometimes you can't tell. I was just talking about this, I was watching the Naughty Knitwits podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. And Michelle was saying how she saw this yarn on the website. She loved it. It was her colors. She got it and she's just like, I don't know. But then she got like another yarn and like a mini from someone else that she's like, I just love it. And she held it up next to her full skein and she's like, it's literally the same colors. Like, I don't know what my problem is. And I was thinking that a lot of times we look at a yarn and it looks so different between a skein or caked up or knitted up. So depending on how we saw it, like if we saw a knitted up version of it, which, you know, I bought a skein I mentioned last week about I didn't like it in the skein. And then I saw someone knitting on it and I'm like, what is that yarn? And she told me, I was surprised because I didn't like the skein of it. So it's funny how different it can look. All right, so I mentioned that last week I went to Arkansas Yarn Co. and it's hard to leave there and not buy anything at all. I always see something that I didn't see last time. So I have been wanting to, for a long time, try Surrey base yarn. I've used mohair before in sweaters and accessories, and it's fine. I just don't love how mohair seems to get everywhere. Like, I feel like even if it's not next to my mouth, I have mohair in my mouth once I have it out, which I really annoyed. And so I just wanted to try what the difference was with Surrey as far as warmth or feel, or if it gets all over me. I know that a lot of people have mohair allergies, but can use Surrey. So I picked up this. This is, Natty caked it up for me while we were there. So this is Surrey Silk Cloud. This is 74% baby Surrey alpaca and 26% silk. And this color is called Rose Gold. And then again, I'm like, well, what am I going to use this for? So I'm going to make a hat because Lori had quite a few hat samples out. So I picked up this. And this is her single base, which is just 100% merino single. And the color Snowflake. So I'm going to hold these two double together. And I'm going to make this hat. I have been seeing this hat a lot on Instagram, and I just love how it looks. So I'm going to give it a go. I haven't obviously cast it on yet. I just made Natty, cake it up for me. Because I hate caking up mohair. So I'm like, oh, you should just cake that up for me while we're here. So she did. So that is my yarn purchases. I got one other thing. Speaking of Natty, she is totally an enabler. And I was watching their last podcast, and she had gotten these stitch markers. And you've seen I love stitch markers. It's been a long time since I bought any except for Lori's because I had so many different food ones. I've had more than enough. But these ones got me these gummy bear stitch markers. They are so cute. Gummy bears are one of my favorite candies of all time. They are, in fact, my travel candy. When I go on a road trip, I need gummy bears or gummy worms. These are so cute. Makes me want to get a bag of them to eat right now. So this is from Vessel Stitch Co. Obviously. And then I also got this one, which Maddie had also gotten, which is a waffle. So yeah, those, I'm excited now that I've shown them that I'm going to get to use this on a project. Okay, so this week, the last podcast of this first month, I'm going to do my first top 3 list. So I feel like the first thing I had to talk about was yarn stores, my top 3 yarn stores. Now, I'm not a huge traveler, so I haven't been to tons of yarn stores everywhere, but it's definitely one of those things that now when I go anywhere, I'm like, okay, where's the yarn store at? So I was making a list, and so you'll have to excuse me if I'm looking down at my notes. When I was thinking of making this list of yarn stores, I was trying to think of what makes a good yarn store. So I'm curious to see your comments below on what you love in your either local yarn store or what you claim is your local yarn store or ones that you visit every time you go somewhere. So I wrote down 4 things that I love about yarn stores. So first of all, location's a big one. Obviously, if there's one in your local neighborhood, I mean, how lucky are you? But also location in the sense of, like, what else is it around? Like, is it a cool area where there's other, like, local shop owners with cool things that makes you want to shop the area? Just kind of goes with the area very well. I think that is a big play into going to visit it, especially because if you're traveling, it's like a destination. It's not just the yarn store. Well, I want to go to the antique store next to it. And then there's a great coffee shop by it. So location's the first one. The second one is the yarn selection. So I know I would love it if I, had a yarn store that only carried all the brands I love. Although that'd be super, super dangerous. But not even yarn brands, that they have different yarn brands, but different weights. If you're looking for an Aran weight pattern, can I go into my local yarn shop and be like, yes, I know they're going to have a selection for me. And color. Not just like, oh, I have this brand, but I have 3 colors of it in one weight. So it's nice if they have a true selection of things. All right, but now we're getting into the real deep stuff, which is the people. So what are the people like at your yarn shop? Now, unfortunately, I'm sure all of you have had this experience where you've gone into a yarn shop, whether it's your local one or one you're visiting from out of town, and just felt out of place. You're a knitter or you're a crocheter, but you didn't feel very welcome and it just felt cold. You kind of know when you walk into a yarn store where the owner and the employees and even the people there just are so inviting and like, oh, welcome to the yarn shop. What are you looking for? Any of us knows where it is. Let's help you. Come and sit and knit for a while. And whether it's you are a knitter or you are a crocheter, whether you're a beginner or you're an advanced, everything is special. And going into a yarn shop where they get that is super important. So the last thing that isn't a necessity, but I find it says a lot about the yarn shop, is that they have a maker area. So they have comfy chairs or a table, places where, again, if you're going, not in your local town, you're traveling even an hour to a yarn store, like, I want to stay a while. I don't want to just buy up my yarn and then go. I want to sit. I want to relax. I want to feel comfortable. So I love yarn shops that have a making area where it's almost, even if you can't at that point stay and craft, it's like an invitation, like, we want you to stay. Like, don't just, spend money here and leave. We want you to come in and stay a while. And I just love that. And I feel like yarn stores that have it versus ones that don't are so much more inviting to me personally. So, having that said then, I made a list of my top 3 yarn shops. So my third favorite yarn shop is Park Avenue Yarns. This is in Friendswood, Texas, and I have been there quite a few times, although they have a new location that I just went to in November. A friend of mine lives outside of Houston, and so every time I visit her, we always go to this yarn shop. And she tells me, oh, I went to the yarn shop, and I know which one she went to. They have, like I said, moved fairly recently to Friendswood, Texas, and they now have a very big building, a classroom area. They have sewing things. They have fabric. They have, I think I saw cross-stitch kits. It's very inclusive for different crafts. There was a lot to look at. And they do also dye their own yarn. Not a ton of it, but they do dye their own yarn. They do have a website, so you can purchase them, so I will link that below. And their yarn brand is called Olive Yarns. So that is a great store if you're ever in the area south of Houston. My second favorite store, I have only been to one time. And I went again. All 3 of these stores I went to in November on 1 week of vacation, so it was quite lucky. But the second one is the Modern Skein, and that is in Montgomery, Texas. My daughter and I, when we were traveling for vacation, we went to Waco, Texas to go visit Magnolia. And then we drove to Houston to visit my friend. And Montgomery, Texas is pretty much right in the middle of both of those towns. The Modern Skein has a podcast. That's how I heard of them. I always watch their podcast, and I'm like, I really want to go there. So I specifically planned the trip so that I could go there. The cool thing about the Modern Skein is their location. Isn't it like not much around them, but yet in that one section, it's imagine like a tiny small town that still thrives in like their Main Street area. That's what this areas look like. It has a little coffee shop next to them, a winery, a couple really cool antique shops, this amazing burger place, like across the street, a block away from them. It's like you want to go into every single one of those little places that they are next to. It is amazing location. Secondly, when you walk in, the amount of yarn they have is unreal. And it is so organized and beautifully laid out that you would just want to spend all day there. But in the same instance, you could find what you wanted super quickly there because they have it by weight as they go down the row and colors. So it's amazing and beautiful. They have a nice big sofa there, and they have a store cat, which is, I forgot the cat's name. I'll think of it later. But they are super friendly, but yet they also are quiet when you're searching, and not like the awkward quiet. Like sometimes you feel like a store owner's like, okay, you ready to check out yet? You ready yet? They're quiet in the way that they know that you're just falling in love with all the yarn as you're shopping and taking your time. But if you have a question, they can tell you everything about it. They were super friendly, and I definitely am going to need to go back because it was amazing. So they also have an online shop, so I will link that one below, the Modern Skein. And can you guess what my number one yarn store is? I've only mentioned it probably 10 times already on this podcast. So my favorite yarn store is Arkansas Yarn Co., and that is located in Malvern, Arkansas. So a little story about that. I've been crocheting for quite a few years and knitting for a few years now. I think I've been knitting maybe like 4 years. And there is a yarn shop in the town I'm located in. However, I never really felt at home there for some reason. And I remember seeing, I don't know if it was online or Instagram or something. I saw something with Lori's tagline, which says, "Come see why we're different here." And that really, I'm like, what does that mean? And so I'm like, okay, Malvern's an hour away from me. But I made the trip with a friend of mine. I'm like, okay, we got to go to this yarn store because I'm like, I'm dying to know what that means. I didn't tell her when I walked in, like, this is why I'm here. Why are you different? I just wanted to see for myself. All those things that I mentioned in the beginning about a yarn store, I immediately felt at home. I felt comfortable. I felt important. And I understood immediately what she meant by that is come see why we're different. So both Lori, the owner and dyer of Arkansas Yarn Co., and her employees, which is her daughter, Jessa, and her friend, Anna, they are so easygoing, easy to talk to, relaxed, and not pressuring you to buy yarn, just like they're just really glad you're there. And it's such a refreshing feeling with that. And since then, I've gotten very close with Lori, and she's one of the people that inspired me to do this podcast. So she is the best, and I will brag about her always. And so they obviously also have a website, and Arkansas Yarn Co. has an app. Whether you're an Android or Apple user, download the app. I've mentioned it before. You get discounts sometimes that other people don't know about. You get notifications first about new products. which is awesome. So that is my top 3 favorite yarn stores. So to end the podcast, since we're talking about Lori, I wanted to mention one other thing. So Lori has her first subscription box coming out. It's releasing, I mean, you can't order it anymore, but it's releasing, it's being sent out Monday. So she has, this box is a few of her favorite things, and that's at least, I think, the theme for all this calendar year. And it's going to include yarn and obviously other things that are her very favorite. So because it's such a special thing for her to be creating this, I am actually going over to Arkansas Yarn Co. Monday, which is January 31st. I will be over there in the morning. Again, if you're local and want to come say hi, I will be going on Instagram and be doing a live unboxing of Lori's first subscription box. I'm super excited. She's been wanting to tell me about stuff that's in it, and I'm like, I gotta do the live video. It has to be a surprise. So I'm really, really excited, and I'm going to be doing that with her. And then her and I were talking, and I immediately, when she posted the subscription, I bought it immediately, because I'm like, even if I only get one of her boxes, I have to get the first one because it's so special. But then again, with my stash and trying to be mindful of what I'm making, I'm like, oh man, all the boxes are going to be so special. Like, she already knows what's going to be in them for the whole year. She knows the theme of every month. And I'm like, I did not get an advent calendar of hers last year, and then I kicked myself because it was so gorgeous. So I was trying to tell myself, okay, well, if I get this whole year of boxes, what am I going to do with all those single skeins of yarn? I have to do something. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to be making a chevron blanket. I was telling Lori, I'm like, okay, I'm telling myself it's okay to get the whole year because I'm going to make a chevron blanket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a picture of inspiration. This is a free pattern I'm using. So basically it has a baby blanket size or like a throw size. So I'm going to make the throw, and after the cast on, it's the same 2 rows over and over. So it'll be mindless knitting. And I told her I'm going to hold it double because it's like I think it calls for sport weight. So I'm going to hold it double like DK and knit it. And then I'm also getting some of her white wedding cake and doing a little couple rows between each color. I'm going to basically knit till I'm out of yarn for each month. So then when I was talking to her the other night, she's like, well, that sounds like a good idea. I love chevron blankets. I want to make one too. Do you care if I make one along with you? So we started talking, and we decided to do a make-along. So Lori and I will both be using her year-long subscription box. We're both, of course, getting Sparkle, and we will be making chevron blankets, our own versions of them. The great thing about chevrons is whether you're a knitter or you're a crocheter, chevrons, you can find a million different patterns for them. So we are doing a make-along, and we haven't gotten all the details yet. It obviously will be year-long. It has to be chevron. It has to be a blanket. We have a hashtag, which Lori thought of, and it's brilliant. I'll put it on the screen. It is the thechevronyearitch. So we hope that you will join us. She will have, on her Ravelry group page, she will have a place where you can put in your projects. And I know if you use her yarn, there'll be double entries. So we have to work out a few more of the details about whips or FOs, counting. But basically, chevron pattern, blanket. If you use her yarn, better your chances to win something. But I'm really excited about it. So we'll be making the same blanket, but it'll look a little bit different. And so I hope you guys love chevrons. And I mean, and honestly, if you don't use her yarn or you have her yarn in your stash already, you could use it from your stash. And so then you'd be entered into the chevron make along and the / my stash for the year also, so you could double dip. So excited about that. Excited about the crochet class I'll be teaching. Like I said, that is also on Lori's website right now that you can sign up for. And so I hope to meet a few of you there. That'd be awesome. And I think that's about it for this week. Yeah, that's all I have. So I hope you have a great rest of the month, January. And remember to use that hashtag, and I'm going to pull for a prize February 1st and notify a winner. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.